had gone through their initial testing. The last ones, of course, yesterday, 2 different PCR tests separated by a minimum of 12 hours between those tests, and quarantine in their rooms in the interim until the test results of the second come out. The volume of tests yesterday with the number of teams that arrived, the at-larges basically yesterday, and those that waited to have their Sunday night test until after Selection Sunday resulted in a slight delay in getting some test results back yesterday afternoon, which led to a slight delay in some practice times by about an hour in the Indiana Convention Center, but teams were understanding of that process and compliant with waiting until they were cleared from quarantine to have their first practice in the Convention Center. The Convention Center has been set up and stood up really just over the last 24, 36 hours with the 12 different practice courts with an athletic training room of great size and distancing and a spectacular weight room for the teams to utilize as well. A huge space with great weight training equipment for them to utilize during their stay here in Indianapolis. So all of that happened quite well. Many of the teams will start to practice off-site today at competition venues at Purdue and at IU and the other competition venues in the city of Indianapolis. Today is also, we had a kind of a rough inclement weather day around here yesterday. Some rain, some sleet and hail even, and some heavy thunderstorms last night, but that's all cleared out and timing was good because today is the first day that teams can utilize Victory Field, a really excellent minor league baseball park that's adjacent to the Convention Center and the JW Marriott. So starting this morning, coaches and teams had the opportunity and will this afternoon to extend the controlled environment to the outside and to have some team activities outside in that beautiful area to get some fresh air, and weather looks like it'll be decent here in the coming days as well. So that'll continue to be an opportunity outside for teams to get some fresh air and some activity and social opportunities outside in a healthy and responsible way also. I think, Dave, that's what I have for a general update, and I'll be happy to open it up for one other one, important one, obviously. So we noted the testing aggregate numbers yesterday. They are, as of today, 2,300 completed tests for all tier 1, 2, and 3 individuals that are in or around the controlled environment. There are 5 positives. That should not be assumed to be team personnel necessarily, because as I mentioned, those test results are inclusive of tier 2 individuals, which include, for example, NCAA and event staff, as well as the men's basketball committee. But 5 positives out of 2,300 results. There were more tests taken than that. Yesterday I reported, I think, 2,100 collections. We're going to transition here to final results rather than just collections, so we know what the results of those collections were. So to date, they're 2,300. Of course, that's pending a lot of testing that was done late in the day yesterday, and then of course again this morning. So we'll have updated numbers for you on a daily basis, with 5 positives out of the 2,300 to date. That's it, Dave. I'll turn it back to you and open it up to questions.
Thanks, Dan. In a moment, we'll take questions. I see several hands up. If you would, when I call on you, please make sure you're unmuted, and please identify yourself and the affiliation for which you work. So we will start with Adam Zagoria.
Hey, good morning, Dan. How you doing?
Good morning, Adam. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Good morning. Gonna try to sneak in 2 real quick here. You said sure. all 68. Does that include Virginia being there now, Dan?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. My mistake. No, it's 67. Virginia will come in later in the week for their game on Saturday.
Okay. And secondly, real quick, there was obviously a story yesterday about 6 officials having to be, I guess, sent home. Can you just provide an update on what the status of that is, Dan, and how do you find the replacement refs? Did you have a pool of replacement refs, or how did that work?
Sure. Yeah, first of all, unfortunate and disappointing situation for everyone involved. As we stated last evening, as you note, Adam, 6 officials have been determined not to be able to work the NCAA championship this year as a result of 1 positive test and isolation for that official, and then 5 close contacts as determined by the Marion County Public Health Department, and those individuals placed into quarantine. So really, again, disappointing for everyone involved and unfortunate. We did anticipate, like we did with teams, that it's a possibility that we could have positives among officials. So we identified in advance and had approved by the Men's Basketball Committee up to 17 replacement officials that were continuing to test over the last 7 days and would be available in the unfortunate circumstance that we're faced with now. So 4 of the 6 officials had been replaced. We brought 4 replacement officials into Indianapolis. Again, all 4 of those officials had been testing 7 consecutive days, produced those results, and started their testing regimen upon arrival in Indianapolis last night, quarantining now, and will be able to work the championship once they clear those tests, and then continue to test daily throughout their stay here in Indianapolis.
It sounds like there were some pretty veteran, experienced officials in that group. Are you concerned that those 4 have been replaced, and are you able to say which 4 were replaced?
Yeah, I can't say who the 4 were right now, Adam, but again, those we identified, as you know, 60 officials that were initially invited to work the championship, and then an additional 17, all of whom had been evaluated throughout the entire season, nominated by conferences, evaluated by J.D. Collins and his staff to be tournament-worthy officials. As you know, normally we have 109 officials that work the NCAA championship. So even going above that 60 is still well within what we would have in a normal year as replacements. So we're very confident they are outstanding officials and will do a great job for the tournament.
Thanks, Dan. Good luck.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you.
Dan Wolken, please go with your question.
Yeah, Dan, to follow up on Adam's question there, I just want to clarify that the officials who were contact traced, they cannot work the NCAA tournament at all. Is that correct? They're out.
That is correct, Dan, excuse me. So the contact tracing was done by the Marion County Public Health Department, as was, arranged months ago and throughout the process of determining the medical protocols for this tournament, and would require a quarantine period that would extend long enough that participation in this tournament would not be possible.
Can you pinpoint where the failure was in this situation? I mean, there was a report that the hotel rooms for the officials weren't ready when they came in, which seems like that would be a bit of a surprise given how diligent you guys have been in preparing for this thing. There was a report that were allowed to, somebody signed off on them to go out to dinner. Can you shed any light on just kind of where things broke down on this?
Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate to comment on that, Dan. Accommodations were arranged for, like any large scale event. Sometimes things happen on time, sometimes they happen slightly delayed. Everyone's responsibility is to make their own decisions to be safe and healthy and ready to participate. And again, this is a virus that we don't control. It controls us, not just from an event standpoint, but from an individual standpoint. We try to put safeguards in place to protect everyone's health and safety and the integrity of the event. But it can't be perfect. It's not going to ever be perfect in a pandemic. And so, again, as I mentioned, it's an unfortunate and disappointing circumstance for all involved. But I don't think that there's, something that can be pinpointed as a kind of failure here. It's just an unfortunate set of circumstances.
Thank you.
Darius, please go with your question.
Hey, Dan, how are you? Darius Johnson from Fox 59 and CBS 4 in Indianapolis. I would love to be able to talk to you just to be able to know, are there any games that any of these referees were a part of recently before coming here, whether they've had any contact with the teams or anything like that, to where there may be a concern for any of those players or any staff?
Yeah, Darius, thanks for the question. The referees, the one positive referee did work a couple of conference tournament games over the weekend. The local contact tracers there, as well as the Marion County Health Department, have reviewed the risk exposure there and has determined that it doesn't have any impact on the teams of which participate in those games.
If you could just talk really fast, just a follow-up question to that. Obviously, this is something that everyone will be looking out for. As you said, we're in a pandemic, things will not be perfect. If you could just speak to the numbers, we all would hate to see things go down the drain, but if there's a chance, how many cases could potentially derail things or cause you all to maybe go back to the drawing board to maybe see if you can get some more plans in place, or just, really strengthen people to practice safety?
I'm not sure I completely understand your question, but I will say this, Darius, and then you're welcome to have a follow-up as well. Yeah, we've been planning this event for months, really, going back to last summer, and then specifically here in Indianapolis since November, and more even specifically since January. We have had protocols in place now for months. Much of all of this has been anticipated, which is why we have contingency plans with the Marion County Department of Public Health, with the NCAA Medical Advisory Group. It's why we've had replacement policy for teams, for officials. We have very clearly defined and communicated protocols in place for team travel, testing, how teams operate within this controlled environment, and physical distancing and masking. And frankly, I feel very good about how it's going so far. The teams have been very cooperative. They understand the challenges. They've lived the challenges throughout the entire regular season. And so, things are going quite well right now, but no one's letting their guard down. No one's making any assumptions about the lack of challenges going forward. But so far, so good. The teams are having a great experience too, which is incredibly important. But health and safety is going to continue to be our biggest priority, and also getting teams to their first game and games beyond, so that we can have 67 games competed and determine a really worthy national champion.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Darius.
Rich, please go with your question.
Dan, of the 5 positive tests, I'm sorry, Rich Nye with Channel 13 WTHR in Indianapolis. Of the 5 positive tests, do you have any players or coaches at this time with a positive test?
Rich, we're not going to divulge individuals. We're just not at liberty to do so due to HIPAA rules. So all I can report is the aggregate numbers. And again, an assumption shouldn't be made to your specific question about any individuals or even any groups, because the overall testing numbers include both official travel parties of the teams as well as working staff and committee members. So institutions may, at their own discretion, divulge test results of individuals should they feel that that's appropriate. But we won't be able to share that information today or otherwise.
Tonight is the deadline at 6 p.m. for any replacement teams. Do you anticipate at this point having to make any replacements?
We are not anticipating that right now, but again, we're living in a pandemic, so we do take things day to day and even hour to hour. But fortunately, we're not aware of any situations that would result in a replacement team coming in.
And finally, Dan, you've somewhat addressed this, but do you feel that the referees made any mistake in their protocols that led to them being eliminated through the COVID testing and contact tracing?
I don't think it's appropriate to comment on that, Rich. I wasn't there. I don't know that I have full information to be able to comment on that. I will say this, that throughout the entire season, everyone involved with this great game of basketball has made incredible sacrifices and commitment to doing things in a healthy and safe way, and that includes the referees. I think a lot of us had concerns going into the season that officials who travel independently and work on multiple days, may be among the higher risk individuals around the game just by the very nature of their work. And credit to them individually and to them collectively as a group of professionals. That is not at all what we saw during the regular season. We saw very few games impacted by positive tests from officials. So I'm not commenting on this situation because I don't know enough information to do so, nor would it be appropriate, but I think it's important to put it in context that referees have made great sacrifices throughout the season. I know will continue to throughout the postseason, and we're appreciative of their efforts.
Thank you, Dan.
You bet, Rich.
Pat, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi Dan, Pat Forty from Sports Illustrated. Two quick ones. First one, do you have any more test results still to come in before that 6 o'clock deadline, or is all the testing hay in the barn, so to speak?
No, we will have a bunch of results still, Pat, that will come in today. We have teams, for example, that arrived yesterday that are still awaiting their second PCR test results, which will get them out of quarantine to be able to have their first practice today. That won't happen until later this afternoon or even early evening, depending on when the team arrives. So we've got an awful lot of test results still pending to hear today.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question, just somewhat alluded to, but any concern about the dilution of the quality of the officiating? Because some of the names that have been put out there are some of the more prominent officials in the game. You feel like you're going to have high quality officiating crews for your games?
Yeah, I very much do. Again, there are a lot of really good officials that agreed to work this championship among the 60. But we had identified another 17 of NCAA tournament quality officials that frankly would be candidates to work all the way through the regionals or even the Final Four. As I mentioned earlier, Paz, I think, normally we have 109 officials that work the entire tournament. We had to narrow that scope this year to 60 just because of the unusual nature of having this all in a controlled environment in one city. But if you extrapolate that, 77 that were identified and approved as an additional 17 as replacement officials, you're still way within the number that we use on an annual basis of 109. So it's a great opportunity for some additional officials due to an unfortunate circumstance, but we're very confident we'll have an outstanding staff for the tournament.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Pat.
Hi, Nancy, please go ahead with your question.
Thanks for doing this, Dan. Two questions for you. First, has the NCAA made a decision yet on the possibility of Sister Jean coming along with Loyola? And then second question, you mentioned Victory Field, but I'm curious, we've seen with NBA and other bubble type situations, athletes talking about the struggle it is for them mental health wise. And I'm curious what the NCAA has done. If you've got a team that makes the Final Four, they could be in Indianapolis for 3.5 weeks, and how you're accounting for some of the concerns that there might be in terms of mental health.
Sure. Yeah, we understand that Sister Jean is interested in coming. We're working with Loyola, to help to support that. I'm not aware of the specific details, Nancy, but of course, that would be fantastic for both Loyola, for Sister Jean, and for the tournament to have her in Indianapolis. So we'll do everything we can to accommodate her, if she does make it here. And happy to report more as I learn more. But that's what we're trying to accomplish now with Loyola. Victory Field is very much, and the outdoor opportunities is very much part of our plan to try to provide opportunities for wellness and mental health. It's during this unusual experience here in Indianapolis. We heard loud and clear from coaches and others that getting outside some was really important. So we're providing that opportunity teams will also have the opportunity to be outside, of course, when they go to their competition venues and practice and come and go in that way. And frankly, the Indiana Convention Center is about a 600,000 square foot, 6-block facility that is massive. I mean, we have walking maps for exercise that go more than a mile in just one direction. So we've been mindful of that. We've got some things planned, Nancy, for teams that advance to do more, including activities outside, such as in controlled environments, such as Topgolf and the Indianapolis Zoo and things like that. So teams that will have a more extended stay here will have some more kind of entertainment options that will be a good break of things for student athletes. It's really hard to do that with 68 teams in such a short amount of time this week. So the options are more limited to the Victory Field experience. But that's the plan at this point. And as we have fewer teams and more opportunity, there'll be more opportunity and options outside and with other things going forward.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nancy.
Steve, please go ahead with your question.
Thanks. There was another report out that said that y'all kind of made a change in when teams could start practicing after arriving at Indianapolis. I guess it impacted Iona for one example. I was just wondering what went into that decision regarding the 12-hour thing rather than 2 separate days. And also, I just wanted to make sure the officials who were removed from the tournament, are they in quarantine or were they sent home, or just what was the situation with those 6?
Yeah, well, to your first question, Steve, any and all decisions around quarantine and testing have been developed by the NCAA Medical Advisory Group of team physicians and medical experts and approved by the Marion County Public Health Department. The reporting around the 12 hours, remember that teams before they even arrive in Indianapolis have 7 consecutive daily tests. So they come in with a high level of confidence of safety and health. Upon arrival, there are 2 PCR tests that are required, and in quarantine and hotel rooms in between those 2 tests. They were intended initially to be on different days, calendar days, and minimally 12 hours between those tests. When you add the operational side of bringing 68 teams in and the various number of times of those arrivals of teams, some of them after midnight coming from the West Coast or due to delay in travel, the medical advisory group, medical professionals, not operations folks, made the decision that the 12 hours could be on the same calendar day if the arrivals were late. It's consistent with the timing of all of the other protocols and arrival, and so that is just a practical adjustment of a medical process and protocol that was put in place by experts and has been followed to a T. The second question was about the officials. Could you just restate so I don't misspeak?
I just wanted to make sure, were they sent home or are they quarantined in Indianapolis? Or I just wanted to clarify what happened with where they are now. If they're
right. Okay.
Or home.
Yep. Sorry. So the one official who's positive is in isolation, of course, and the other 5 officials quarantine. All of that it has to be arranged and monitored by the Marion County Public Health Department. The NCAA's obligation, if that isolation or quarantine period has to take place in Indianapolis and there's any expense involved with that the NCAA would take care of those expenses, of course, as they were invited to work for us. But in terms of the compliance with the quarantine or the isolation, that's not the responsibility of the NCAA. It is the responsibility of the Marion County Public Health Department. So I don't know where that all stands exactly, Steve, in terms of that compliance and where or how that will take place.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Adam, go ahead.
Hey, Dan, I know you love talking about this officials story. Just one final one. You said, as I understand it, 4 of the 6 are out of the tournament. Is it correct that the other 2 could still officiate games, and they are, or what is the status of the other 2? Are they in quarantine now, or?
Yeah, no, the six are not going to work the tournament, unfortunately, Adam. But the JD Collins and the committee have made the decision only to replace 4 of them. We already had an extra number of officials among the 60 to be able to manage all of the games of the tournament. You know, we built in, we have standby officials, for example, as I think you know, at every single game. So it, you know, results in maybe a couple of more assignments for the other officials that were in that group of 60. So that's the reason for not replacing all 6 and the determination just to replace the 6 with 4. We still have a very good staff and plenty of officials to work the championship. Does that answer your question?
So none of those 6 will officiate any games. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
You bet, Adam.
Thanks for your time today, Dan, and thanks for all the members of the media who joined us. And a reminder that we will have a recording of this call posted on the Digital Media Hub, where all things media related for 2021 Men's Basketball Championship will be stored. This call will take place again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, as well as Thursday at the same time. So if you have anything for Dan, please join and encourage your colleagues. If they have questions for the NCAA, Dan will provide an update and answer any questions. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Be well.